Everyone knows dinosaurs ruled the ancient world. But what if I told you they were actually late arrivals to the party? Millions of years before T-Rex ever drew breath, nightmarish creatures dominated Earth that would make modern horror films look like children's cartoons. We're talking about sea monsters with razor-sharp claws longer than baseball bats, insects the size of small cars, and alien-looking predators that hunted in ways so terrifying they seem impossible. Today we're traveling back to when Earth was truly a planet of monsters, starting with a world so hostile that it barely resembled the planet we know today. When Earth was a living hell. Picture a world where the ground beneath your feet was molten rock, and the sky glowed orange from constant asteroid bombardment. 4.5 billion years ago, Earth resembled nothing like the planet we know today. The surface churned with volcanic eruptions, spewing toxic gases into an atmosphere thick with methane, ammonia, and hydrogen sulfide. Temperatures reached levels that would instantly vaporize any modern life form, and the very air would kill anything that dared to breathe it. Yet somehow, in this apocalyptic landscape, the first sparks of life began to emerge. The extreme conditions that seemed designed to destroy life actually created the perfect laboratory for its birth. Lightning strikes provided the energy needed to forge complex molecules from simple gases, while volcanic vents on the ocean floor created chemical reactions that had never occurred before. The constant bombardment of cosmic radiation and meteorites delivered organic compounds from space, adding ingredients to Earth's primordial soup that would prove essential for the emergence of living organisms. As the planet slowly cooled over millions of years, the first oceans formed from the condensation of water vapor in the atmosphere. These ancient seas were nothing like the blue waters we see today. Instead, they were murky, acidic pools filled with dissolved metals and chemicals that would be instantly lethal to modern marine life. Some underwater vents reached extreme temperatures, creating geysers and steam that made the ocean floor resemble an alien landscape. Within these hostile waters, the first microscopic organisms began to take shape around 3.8 billion years ago. These weren't the familiar bacteria we know today, but rather primitive cellular structures that could survive in conditions that would annihilate any modern life form. They thrived in boiling water, fed on sulfur compounds, and reproduced in environments so toxic that they would challenge our understanding of what life could endure. These early microbes possessed metabolic pathways that allowed them to extract energy from the most unlikely sources, turning poison into food and death into life. The most successful of these early organisms were cyanobacteria, which developed the ability to harness energy from sunlight through photosynthesis. This innovation would prove to be one of the most significant evolutionary developments in Earth's history, but it came with a terrifying consequence. As these microscopic factories spread across the ancient oceans, they began producing oxygen as a waste product, fundamentally altering the planet's chemistry in ways that would trigger the first mass extinction event. These bacterial colonies began forming complex layered structures called stromatolites, which resembled giant stone pillows rising from the ocean floor. Built through the repetitive growth of photosynthetic bacteria that trapped sediment particles between their layers, these formations created towers that could reach several feet in height. The stromatolites represented the first construction projects on Earth, built not by intelligence, but by the relentless activity of countless microscopic organisms working together. The bacteria within these structures were actively transforming the planet's atmosphere, pumping out oxygen at rates that would fundamentally change the rules of life on Earth. What seems beneficial to us today was actually a catastrophic event for the organisms of that time. This buildup of oxygen triggered the Great Oxidation Event, a mass die-off of anaerobic organisms that had evolved to survive in an oxygen-free environment. As oxygen levels rose, it created a poisonous atmosphere that killed off countless species in what became Earth's first Holocaust. This microscopic catastrophe cleared the way for a new type of organism that could not only tolerate oxygen, but actually use it to generate energy more efficiently than ever before. The bacteria that survived this toxic transformation became the foundation for all complex life that would follow. They developed sophisticated cellular machinery that could harness oxygen's destructive power and convert it into useful energy, setting the stage for the evolution of larger, more complex organisms. The stromatolite builders were reshaping Earth's surface in other ways as well. Their photosynthetic activity was gradually cooling the planet by removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, ending the extreme greenhouse conditions that had dominated the early Earth. This cooling effect would eventually lead to massive ice ages that covered much of the planet in glaciers, creating new environmental pressures that would drive further evolutionary innovation. These ancient microbial communities also began producing the first organic compounds that would serve as building blocks for more complex life forms. Microbial mats trapped sediment and released oxygen, paving the way for complex life. Within these primitive communities, different species of bacteria began developing specialized roles, with some focusing on photosynthesis, while others became skilled at decomposing organic matter or processing specific chemical compounds. The metabolic innovations of these early organisms established the fundamental biochemical processes that all future life would depend on. They invented cellular respiration, developed the first genetic storage systems, and created the basic molecular machinery that would be inherited by every living thing that followed. Their experiments with different cellular structures and metabolic pathways provided the evolutionary toolkit that would later be used to construct creatures beyond imagination. As these microscopic communities grew more complex, they began producing chemical signals that allowed them to communicate with each other across vast distances. They developed the ability to coordinate their activities, timing their reproduction cycles and responding collectively to environmental changes. This primitive form of biological cooperation would eventually evolve into the complex multicellular organisms that would dominate later periods. The stromatolite builders continued their work for over 1 billion years, steadily modifying Earth's chemistry and creating the conditions necessary for more complex life forms to emerge. Their patient construction projects filled ancient seas with layered limestone structures that would eventually become some of the oldest fossils on Earth. These microscopic architects were preparing the planet for something unprecedented. Creatures so bizarre and alien-looking that they would challenge everything we thought we knew about life itself. The first alien invasion. Around 575 million years ago, Earth experienced its first genuine alien invasion, though the invaders weren't from outer space. The Ediacaran period marked the moment when truly bizarre multicellular organisms began appearing in the ancient seas, creatures so strange that they seemed to follow completely different rules of biology than anything we see today. The fossil evidence of these creatures presents one of paleontology's greatest mysteries. Unlike the hard shells and bones that would preserve later animals for millions of years, these organisms possessed only soft tissues that left mere ghostly impressions in sedimentary rocks. Discovered first in Australia's Ediacara Hills in 1946, these soft-bodied creatures left only faint imprints in sandstone. When paleontologists first uncovered these fossils, they realized they had found something unprecedented in Earth's history. Dickinsonia stands out as perhaps the most perplexing of these ancient organisms. This creature resembled a quilted pancake that could grow over 3 feet in length, with its body divided into segments that created a distinctive ridged pattern across its surface. The symmetry of Dickinsonia defied conventional biological categories, displaying a form of organization that doesn't match any known animal, plant, or fungal structure. Recent chemical analysis has revealed that Dickinsonia contained cholesterol, suggesting possible connections to animals, fungi, or red algae, yet its overall body plan remains unlike anything that exists today. The feeding mechanisms of these Ediacaran organisms present another layer of mystery. Dickinsonia appears to have moved across the seafloor in a gliding motion, leaving behind trails that suggest it was somehow extracting nutrients from the bacterial mats beneath it. These creatures lacked mouths or guts entirely, instead absorbing nutrients directly through their skin from the surrounding seawater through osmosis. No evidence exists of digestive systems or any of the feeding structures that characterize later life forms. The body plans of these organisms suggest evolutionary experiments that took completely different paths than the animals that would follow. Their strange symmetries and modular constructions seem almost artificially designed, as if they were built according to geometric principles rather than biological necessities. Some possessed radial symmetry with patterns that repeated around a central axis, while others displayed bilateral symmetry but with arrangements of body segments that don't correspond to any known animal phylum. Sprigina represents another enigmatic member of this ancient community, resembling a segmented alien with a distinctive crescent-shaped head shield. This creature stretched up to 2 inches in length and possessed a series of segments that ran along its body, creating a superficial resemblance to later arthropods. However, the arrangement of these segments and the overall body architecture followed patterns that don't align with any known animal group. The head shield of Sprigina appears to have been rigid, while the body segments could flex, suggesting a form of locomotion that combined gliding with undulating movements. The diversity of forms within the Ediacaran biota suggests that these organisms were experimenting with multicellular organization in ways that would never be repeated in later evolutionary history. Some resembled fronds anchored to the seafloor, swaying in ancient currents like underwater ferns. Others took the form of discs, tubes, and complex branching structures that created 3-dimensional networks across the ocean bottom. The variety of body plans indicates that the fundamental rules governing multicellular organization were still being established during this period. The environmental conditions of the Ediacaran seas created a unique setting for these evolutionary experiments. The oceans contain lower oxygen levels than today, and the absence of hard-shelled predators meant that these soft-bodied organisms could grow large without developing protective armor. The seafloor was covered in extensive bacterial mats that provided a stable substrate for attachment and possibly a source of nutrients for the organisms living above them. The tissue organization of these creatures appears to have been fundamentally different from modern animals. Rather than developing complex organ systems, they seem to rely on simple cellular arrangements that could maintain basic life functions through direct contact with their environment. This approach to multicellular organization may have been perfectly suited to the low-energy conditions of the Ediacaran seas, where efficient nutrient extraction was more important than active hunting or complex behaviors. The mysterious nature of these organisms has led some paleontologists to propose that they represent completely extinct lineages that have no living descendants. Adolf Seilacher suggested creating a separate biological category called Vindobionta for these creatures, indicating that their bizarre forms might represent a failed experiment in multicellular life. This perspective highlights how radically different these organisms were from the animals that would eventually dominate Earth's ecosystems. The reproductive strategies of Ediacaran organisms remain largely unknown, as no clear evidence exists of sexual reproduction or the complex life cycles seen in later animals. Some fossils suggest that these creatures could reproduce through fragmentation, with pieces breaking off to form new individuals. Others may have released spores or gametes into the water column, though the mechanisms for such reproduction are purely speculative. The ecological relationships within Ediacaran communities appear to have been relatively simple compared to later periods. Without evidence of predation or complex feeding interactions, these organisms seem to have coexisted in relatively peaceful communities where competition was primarily for space and nutrients rather than involving active hunting or defensive behaviors. This lack of predation pressure may have allowed for the development of the large, soft-bodied forms that characterize this period. The global distribution of Ediacaran fossils indicates that these organisms colonized seafloor environments across multiple continents, suggesting that they were highly successful in their ecological niches. Fossil sites in Russia, Namibia, and Newfoundland have revealed similar assemblages of creatures, indicating that these organisms had achieved worldwide distribution during their evolutionary heyday. The sudden disappearance of the Ediacaran biota at the end of this period represents one of the most significant transitions in Earth's history. Multiple factors may have contributed to their extinction, including changing environmental conditions, the advent of new predators, and competition from emerging animal groups. The Ediacaran extinction event, approximately 539 million years ago, marked the end of these alien-like pioneers and set the stage for something far more violent and revolutionary than anything Earth had witnessed before: the Cambrian explosion of nightmares. Around 541 million years ago, Earth's oceans transformed from peaceful communities into violent battlegrounds, where evolutionary innovation exploded at unprecedented rates. The Cambrian period marked the moment when life abandoned its gentle existence and embraced warfare as the primary driver of change. The sudden appearance of hard shells, claws, and the first true weapons in nature triggered a biological arms race that escalated with each passing generation. The most revolutionary development during this period was the emergence of biomineralization, the process by which organisms began creating hard, mineralized structures like shells and exoskeletons. These weren't merely decorative features but rather sophisticated armor systems designed to protect against newly evolved predators. The soft-bodied creatures that had dominated the Ediacaran seas suddenly found themselves vulnerable to attack, forcing them to either develop protective shells or face extinction. This innovation transformed the ocean floor from a carpet of gentle filter feeders into a landscape of armored fortresses. The appearance of hard shells triggered an immediate response from predators, who began developing claws, spines, and crushing appendages capable of breaking through these new defenses. The ocean became filled with the sounds of shells cracking, claws scraping against armor, and the desperate movements of creatures trying to escape their newly armed enemies. This escalation continued throughout the Cambrian period, with each defensive innovation spurring the development of more sophisticated offensive weapons. Trilobites emerged as the period's most successful survivors, developing compound eyes that could detect the slightest movement in the murky waters around them. These arthropods possessed visual systems more advanced than many modern insects, with some species having over 15,000 individual lenses in each eye. Their compound eyes could detect polarized light, track multiple moving objects simultaneously, and spot predators approaching from virtually any angle. The trilobites used this superior vision to dominate the ocean floor, becoming the period's most diverse and widespread group of organisms. The development of vision itself represented a crucial turning point in the evolutionary arms race. Once creatures could see their prey and predators clearly, hunting strategies became exponentially more sophisticated. Predators began developing specialized hunting techniques, including ambush tactics, pursuit hunting, and coordinated attacks. The ability to track moving targets with precision transformed the ocean from a place where creatures simply filtered nutrients from the water into an active hunting ground, where visual predators pursued their prey with deadly efficiency. The bizarre body plans that emerged during this evolutionary free-for-all defied conventional understanding of animal design. Creatures developed 5 eyes, 50 legs, and body segments that could be rearranged like modular construction sets. Some organisms possessed grasping appendages that could extend far beyond their body length, while others developed defensive spines that could pivot and rotate to track approaching threats. The variety of forms that appeared during this period suggests that evolution was experimenting with every possible combination of body parts and arrangements. Opabinia exemplified the experimental nature of Cambrian evolution, possessing 5 mushroom-shaped eyes and a long proboscis tipped with a grasping claw. This creature combined the visual capabilities of a compound-eyed predator with the precision hunting tools of a specialized carnivore. Its unique body plan allowed it to hover above the seafloor while using its extensible proboscis to probe for small prey hiding in crevices and burrows. The success of such unusual designs demonstrates how the Cambrian explosion rewarded innovation over conventional body plans. The ocean floor became populated with scuttling, crawling nightmares that moved through the water with mechanical precision. Creatures developed jointed legs that could propel them across the seafloor at surprising speeds, while others evolved undulating body movements that allowed them to swim through the water column with serpentine grace. The diversity of locomotion methods meant that no hiding place was safe from the various predators that had evolved to exploit every available ecological niche. Spriggiano represented one of the most intriguing experiments in defensive design, with its distinctive crescent-shaped head shield and segmented body that could flex and undulate for rapid movement. This creature's rigid front section provided protection, while its flexible posterior allowed for quick escapes from pursuing predators. The combination of defensive armor and mobility created a successful template that would influence arthropod design for millions of years. Waiwaxia developed a different approach to defense, covering its body with scale-like armor plates and defensive spines that could be raised or lowered depending on the threat level. This creature resembled a living medieval shield, with overlapping plates that provided comprehensive protection while still allowing for mobility. The sophisticated armor system of Waiwaxia suggests that predation pressure during the Cambrian was intense enough to drive the evolution of complex defensive mechanisms. The diversity of feeding strategies that emerged during this period transformed the ocean ecosystem into a complex web of predator-prey relationships. Filter feeders developed more efficient methods of extracting nutrients from the water, while predators evolved increasingly sophisticated hunting techniques. Some creatures became specialized for crushing shells, while others developed precision tools for extracting soft tissues from armored prey. The variety of feeding methods meant that every available food source was being exploited by specialized organisms. Morella, known as the lace crab, developed a unique feeding strategy that combined filter feeding with active predation. This creature possessed delicate branching gills that could filter small organisms from the water, while its grasping appendages captured larger prey. The combination of feeding methods allowed Morella to exploit multiple food sources simultaneously, giving it an advantage in the competitive Cambrian environment. The success of these early arthropods established the template for future marine ecosystems, with their segmented bodies, jointed appendages, and compound eyes becoming the standard design for aquatic predators. The innovations developed during the Cambrian explosion would influence the evolution of marine life for hundreds of millions of years, establishing the fundamental predator-prey relationships that continue to shape ocean ecosystems today. As the Cambrian period progressed, the intensity of predation continued to escalate, with creatures developing increasingly sophisticated weapons and defensive systems. The ocean had become a proving ground for evolutionary innovation, where only the most perfectly adapted organisms could survive the constant threat of predation. Among all these armored creatures scuttling across the seafloor, the stage was perfectly set for the emergence of something truly monstrous. Anomalocaris, the ocean's first serial killer. The creature that emerged from this evolutionary battleground would become among the first top predators in Earth's history. Anomalocaris measured up to 1.5 feet in length, enormous for its time in a world where most creatures barely reached the size of a modern coin. This massive size advantage transformed it into the undisputed apex predator of the Cambrian seas, a position it would hold for millions of years, while smaller organisms lived in constant fear of its presence. The body of Anomalocaris possessed a flexible, shrimp-like design that allowed it to move through the water with alien grace. Unlike the rigid exoskeletons that protected other Cambrian creatures, this predator's body could bend and twist in ways that seemed almost supernatural. Its segmented form undulated through the water like a living ribbon, creating sinuous movements that propelled it forward with surprising speed. The flexible nature of its body provided the agility needed to outmaneuver prey and launch attacks from unexpected angles. Two massive grasping appendages extended from the front of its body, functioning like mechanical claws designed specifically for capturing and holding struggling prey. These spiny appendages could extend far beyond the creature's head, allowing it to snatch victims from distances that seemed impossible for other predators to reach. The appendages possessed rows of sharp spines along their inner surfaces, creating a grip that few creatures could escape once they were caught. These specialized hunting tools could flex and rotate with precision, allowing Anomalocaris to manipulate captured prey with surgical accuracy. The mouth of this prehistoric nightmare presented perhaps its most terrifying feature. The circular opening was lined with razor-sharp teeth arranged in concentric rings, creating a crushing mechanism that could process even the hardest exoskeletons. This unique mouth structure functioned like a biological garbage disposal, capable of reducing armored trilobites to fragments within seconds. The teeth were positioned to maximize crushing force while preventing prey from escaping once the mouth began to close. Anomalocaris possessed two large compound eyes that provided it with visual capabilities far superior to most other Cambrian organisms. These compound lenses allowed for effective hunting even in the dim waters of the ancient seas, giving this predator a crucial advantage over its prey. The eyes could track multiple prey items simultaneously while scanning the surrounding waters for potential threats or opportunities. The compound structure allowed for detection of movement across a wide field of view, making it nearly impossible for prey to approach without being noticed. The hunting strategy employed by Anomalocaris relied heavily on its powerful swimming ability and capacity for surprise attacks. This predator could remain motionless in the water column, blending with the shadows until unsuspecting prey wandered within striking distance. When the moment was right, it would launch forward with explosive speed, using its flexible body to generate thrust that carried it toward its target faster than most creatures could react. The element of surprise was crucial to its success, as many potential prey items possessed their own defensive mechanisms that could be deployed if given sufficient warning. The terror inspired by Anomalocaris throughout the Cambrian ecosystem cannot be overstated. In a world still dominated entirely by invertebrates, with no vertebrates yet evolved, this creature represented the pinnacle of predatory evolution. Smaller creatures had no effective hiding places from this mobile predator, which could pursue them into crevices, across open water, and even into the sediment layers of the ocean floor. The constant threat of predation forced other organisms to develop increasingly sophisticated defensive strategies, including thicker shells, defensive spines, and improved escape responses.